Welcome to Biz Help for You with host Candy Messer. Entrepreneurs like to focus on the big picture, like profitability, success, and a smooth-running organization. But there always seems to be those little things like taxes, employee compensation, laws, regulations, and more. Now you can get the answers you need in one place. Join us today as we break it all down for you. Now, here's your host, Candy Messer.
Hello and welcome to Biz Help for You with Candy Messer. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed our last topic, strategies to attract and retain today's employees, informative. If you are unable to join us and would like to listen to the show, links can be found on our YouTube and Facebook pages, as well as multiple favorite podcast platforms. And if you'd like to receive notifications on when our podcasts have been uploaded, please like and subscribe. And if there are topics you'd find beneficial or questions you have, please feel free to reach out to me at media@abandp.com. Now let's learn a little bit about our guest today. Diane Strand is an award-winning executive producer at JDS Studios and the TV show Spirit of Innovation, the first Riverside County local news and information program. She is the majority owner of JDS Video and Media Productions, Inc., JDS Actor Studio, and the founder of nonprofit JDS Creative Academy. She's also a best-selling author on entrepreneurship and breaking into the industry as an actor. Diane provides pathways for career opportunities in the visual, performing, and digital arts. Her passion for workforce development in the arts led her to write 2 approved curriculums for video production. One is a Title 17 program designed for adults with developmental disabilities. The other is a California state-approved apprenticeship program for college graduates. These programs provide hands-on training and coach-supported paid internship opportunities designed to break down barriers to gainful employment in video production, post-production, and acting. Diane's prior career life holds credits from A-list shows like General Hospital, Friends, Veronica's Closet, and building the high-def control room at Staples Center. For the last 17 years, Diane has been a successful entrepreneur of her own, a multi-award-winning production company, working with clients like Abbott Vascular, City of Temecula, Cal State San Marcos, and United Healthcare Services, to name a few. Diane has launched over 100 video and acting careers in the mainstream entertainment and video production industry. She sets out to provide hope, which Diane defines as helping one person every day. So Diane, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Wow, I'm tired just listening to that bio. Oh my God.
We did read a lot about your background, but I always like to just ask another question too, besides what we've already shared, is how and when did you decide to become an entrepreneur and do all of these things?
Well, I've been an entrepreneur for about 19 years now. So, but I think the entrepreneurship inside of me has been there since I've been taught that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You have to look back. And I think that first dot for me actually really shows up in about 2nd grade when you start really seeing some of these things come to pass. From the overnight lemonade stand to the, selling the most candy in my 2nd grade class just to win a TV. And I still work in TV and I love it. So that tells me that I can do anything that I put my mind to. But I had a business called Images and Imagination Children's Theater for 3.5 years before I really started this true entrepreneurship that I'm in now. But I always knew that I love the arts and I loved video production. I worked in Hollywood and I did the entertainment industry. And there was one night I came home from reality television and I missed my 3-year-old's dinner and bath and bedtime for probably the 2nd or the 3rd night in a row at that point, and a little exhausted. And my husband, who's also in the entertainment industry, he's an actor and he was a film director, looked at me and said, well, what if we sold our house, quit our jobs, and started our own production company? And I just looked at him and I said, yes. And literally that's what we did. In a month, we had our house up for sale. I had left my job working. I think I was on Survivor at the time. I then moved on. He left his work and things, and we started our own production company. And 19 years later, all I've done is grow and grow and grow. So I am a firm believer, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you show up, you say yes, and you pack your own parachute and jump. That's what
Nice.
you do.
Well, in today's topic, we're going to talk about serial entrepreneurship. And so I would love to hear your definition. Is it operating more than one business at a time? Is it starting and stopping various, businesses over time? Like, what would be your definition?
Well, I would say yes and yes would be the quickest answer to that. Serial entrepreneurship, I even remember when my husband said that to me when we decided to do this. And I think one of the questions is, well, what if it doesn't work out? Then what? He said, then we do something else and we open a restaurant, or we do this, anything that we have learned. We're entrepreneurs now. This is what we do. And, I have 3 businesses. I have JDS Video and Media Productions, JDS Actor Studio, and I am the founder of the nonprofit JDS Creative Academy. But I've also had businesses that I've started and stopped or switched or pivoted from in between there. I've done a little real estate investing and flipping of some houses. That's an entrepreneurship. I don't do that so much anymore. I was a little before the Johanna Gaines and Chip Gaines thing. Had I thought about it, because I do the video production, maybe I'd still be in it, but I don't know. We've had little small things. I've worked in the travel. I've worked in different kinds of areas in that sense. So it's a little bit of both. I've had to pivot out of some things that maybe weren't as strong as other things, but at the same time, those that are going and working well, I just keep expanding and putting more irons in the fire, because that's what you have to do as an entrepreneur. And then I found a way that all 3 of my most successful businesses all cross collaborate and work together.
That's awesome. So I know you talked about how you even started your business and kind of what you're doing now. And you mentioned that you have a nonprofit. So how long into being in business was it before you even started this extra arm, let's say, of your business as a nonprofit organization?
Well, we had been doing the video production business at that point for about 14 years. So that is our mainstay, JDS Video and Media Productions, DBA, JDS Actor Studio. So JDS Actor Studio isn't really its own entity in the sense that it operates separately from JDS Video. And that's where you get into learning business 101, entrepreneurship, and you start really getting into how you manage. I'm a firm believer, if we're going to talk a little business, that money has to move to be active and to grow. And so in that sense, those 2 are one entity, even though they're kind of 2 separate businesses. They are one entity, so they work together. And so we had the video production was going strong for about 12, 13 years. And then my husband, I started in this industry as an actor way back when. And my husband is a very successful professional actor, and he was getting that acting itch. So that's kind of where the actor studio developed. It was find a need, fill a need. So, we also saw that there weren't the arts in the school that I had and my husband had when we were kids that really helped us stay focused and grounded. So at this time, I now have 3 kids, 2 of them that were actually in elementary school, and they weren't getting the arts that we wanted them to have. So we went to the school and said, well, what if we did like an after school drama club? And he said, well, if you get it through the school district and get it all approved. So I went that route and we started getting things approved. We came back, we thought we'd have, 15 kids show up at most. we had 55 kids
Wow.
show up. So hence JDS Actor Studio was kind of born, find a need, fill a need. That's when we started to really grow it. My video production ran a lot out of my home. So now we had to find a brick and mortar because I couldn't exactly invite young girls into my guest bedroom for my husband to teach them acting. So we had to find a studio, and then we started the studio. And then within about 4 years of having the actor studio, we launched the nonprofit because we saw that there were all these arts programs that we could offer. We were being asked, there just weren't enough hours in the day for us to continue to do it all on our own. So that's when we started the nonprofit and the collective, and bringing in other industry professionals to be able to teach their, script writing skills or photography skills, and really just started growing and moving things along from there.
So if somebody is hearing what you're saying and saying, okay, well, I have a for-profit business, but I do have a passion for doing something else where I can give back to the community, and I would love to have a nonprofit arm of my business as well. What are those, few steps or tips maybe that you would share with them so they know how to go about doing that and being able to run these two businesses kind of concurrently?
Well, our two businesses work really well once we got into the teaching space. So moving more into now I say we do and we teach. If you want us to really do, that's a service we're providing. It's not really a nonprofit service. But if you want to learn what it is we're doing and how you can go out and do it, that's that give back, to be able to give back. So if you're in your business and you're doing that for others, you can develop that nonprofit community-based business that you're trying to provide. A nonprofit does not mean that it's not a business. It's a nonprofit business. I run it just like I do my for-profit. Except at the end of the day, if there's money left over, it's not money that goes in my pocket as the founder, because I don't own the business. We have a board of directors. I don't make all of the decisions. So you get a collective together that all loves the mission that you're trying to serve. Find the mission. If you're teaching, what are you doing with that? We give a lot of scholarship money that goes out to the high school students who want to pursue arts as a career. We also do that for, we started moving more into the workforce development. So we were showing how the arts and what it is we do. It could be you could be a CPA, you could be a real estate agent, you name your career, you could still develop this model into your business and be able to have that give back component, which changed my life. If you would have asked me 15 years ago, it's funny. It's not that I'm that altruistic person out there. I love people. I believe in kindness, all of those things. But, I got to put gas in my gas tank and food on my table just like everybody else does. And in that sense, but how much more I was able to give when I started giving, because I started giving and I started getting. And that wasn't how I looked at it in the beginning, but I see it now as how it's blossomed and been able to grow in that sense. So I believe that you have to be a good corporate citizen, and this is how I found to be that good corporate citizen. Was people wanted to learn how to do what I do. And now I'm being able to teach them, and they're going out. I've launched over 100 careers in the actor space. I've launched probably 50, 60 production companies in the production space. I've helped people get jobs or better jobs in their career of passion. And that does nothing but make me feel good, right? But then at the same time, it's also been a business to where we're able to even help more because of the business and all the scholarships and bringing in that we're able to do. And it's in the long run, it's also given me financial security too.
Right. Well, when you're operating these different businesses too, and I know you said, cash flow is so important. And of course, a nonprofit organization is a little bit different than a for-profit. But, for someone who's listening who maybe is thinking of starting these multiple businesses too, what would you say about how to handle the cash flow? If one is struggling a little bit, does one kind of support the other? Do you keep them completely separate? Like, how would you
So
recommend they handle that?
well, they are completely separate. There is no doubt. They are tax entities and they are
Mhm.
completely separate, and you have to keep very clean, clear books. Now, my for-profit has helped the nonprofit along in the beginning. The nonprofit does not help my for-profit along, but it generates to where it is for, my for-profit company, its biggest client is the nonprofit.
Mhm.
So the nonprofit is a client of my for-profit company, and that's how you make that work. And it's all contracted and voted on by a board and very open as far as who gets what. And then, there are employees. I'm not an employee of the nonprofit, but there are, it has employees and
Mhm.
those kinds of things. And but you know, they don't mix and mingle if it's not contracted or voted on or anything like that.
Right. Well, I'm glad you touched on that too, because obviously, like as a bookkeeping company too, we've worked with people that have different businesses, and usually it's two different for-profit businesses too. But we're talking about how you need to keep different entity transactions separate. And of course, if one needs some help and you want to help the other one, how do you actually move the money so you're doing it properly? So I just love to have that conversation, because I think sometimes people have like a passion project and it's struggling at first. And so another one is supporting it, but what should they be doing? If that's what they want to do, what should they be doing to actually track that properly as well? I think that's important.
Well, QuickBooks has always been my friend. You set them up in, you set them up as their own entity,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever you are going to fund it with, you fund that entity with it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't keep piecemealing it back and forth. Oh, I need $5 here. I need $100 here. I need this. Can I borrow? Because that's too much bookkeeping, too much back and forth. And that's how you get confused. That's how you mix and mingle and make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a clean area of, when the nonprofit needed the help of my for-profit, it was, here's the money that I am either lending or
Mm-hmm.
that I am donating. And, you keep it very separate in that
Mm-hmm.
sense, and you set it up very cleanly, from that's been, I worked my way through college working for a CPA, and that really was my business 101 training, because my degree is,
Right.
I'm at radio, television, film is my degree from college, and a minor in marketing, but I worked for a CPA. That was my, day job, I guess you could say. And I learned a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
those are the people that when you look back in those dots that you have to connect, that, that was the best job that I ever had. I worked there for 4 years while I was in, going through my education and training, and had my side hustles of entrepreneurship here and side hustle of this and doing that and all the other things that I was doing. That was more when I was acting and going to college and doing those things. But having that job for that CPA taught me a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's so important. I think a lot of times, I've met over the years people who are very creative and they get so confused with the numbers and it's frustrating for them. And if we're talking serial entrepreneurship today too, and you're going to have more than one business, you really have to understand what's going on with the numbers and what's happening with each entity individually and together. And so I think that was a blessing for you, even to have had that as a background to help you make those informed decisions. So just keeping track of all of those different things that sometimes we don't love, but we have to do. So if you're not good at it too, find a professional that could help you, especially if it's a nonprofit. You could have someone on your board maybe who is really good at the numbers and can help you with that too.
Absolutely. I always believe, help. Yeah, I haven't done it alone. I can't do it alone. My partner in life and business is my significant other, my husband, as well as, we have what we call the hashtag JDS family. I have a staff of 13 that, now I couldn't imagine a day without them. It started off, it was Scott and I, and, within the last 4 years, we've just really grown so much. But it is so true to have those numbers when you're running a business, because, that's the truth. The numbers they don't lie.
Right.
And I was always good. I struggled, going back to those dots that you connect. In second grade, I was diagnosed as a dyslexic and a struggling reader. I was a very struggling reader, and I would flip flop and letters bounced all over the page. And it was a real challenge, but numbers, I have to say, were always my friend. I have a photographic memory. Back then you had to memorize every telephone number and all of those things. The numbers always were my friend. And that really even saved me. Even when I was in the creative world working on shows like Friends and General Hospital, I was always, I was a producer. So I always were doing the line budgets and working the numbers and doing a lot of that. And then I taught myself how to read and write. I've sold a screenplay. I've been in the visual creative space, but then I balance really well those numbers. And so, I've been able to successfully merge them together, which, has been a great blessing in my career.
Definitely. So for someone who's listening again too and is thinking they're already operating a nonprofit, or again, maybe they're thinking of adding this arm to their current business, what are some ways that they can source funds for their nonprofit that maybe is a little bit different than how they're operating a for-profit business?
Well, grants, nonprofit has eligibility for grants, whether you try and tap into city, county, and state grants or federal grants are always an option, as well as working with private entities and foundations to be able to get grants, because they're a tax deduction for the money giver, and you don't have to pay taxes as the money receiver on that money. Some grants are set with discretionary things that you have to use that money for. So you have to put, in the world that I know you from, Candy, in that pitch world. So, you have to put your pitch together, that, you got to write your grant and talk about what it is you're going to use that money for, and what your mission really is, whether that be a small community project or whether that be a big workforce project that you're trying to put out. I do work in all of those spaces. I work with my county and my state in the Department of Developmental Services, being a nonprofit, because we work with adults with developmental disabilities to be able to teach them what we do. And, that allows us to apply for, different kinds of grants that open up in that world. I work in the arts space, so there are a lot of grants that are given in the arts world. And then I can turn that around, whether I'm using that to put on a play, or I'm using that to build a studio, or to do a television show, or to be able to hold a big event. It's community driven, and I'm involving the community. I do believe in getting involved. I'm a big stakeholder in my city. I work with my economic development, part of my city government. I'm involved in the chamber. I sit on workforce development boards. I sit on workforce boards. So I have my, I'm able to tap in. People tell me about things, so I'm able to apply for things. You got to get in the know. there are a lot of rabbit holes you can spiral down if you're not careful in chasing money that doesn't exist out there, that they say there's a grant or something like that. And, it's a pipe dream, or, they already have all of that money earmarked for other things. So, you got to work the pitch to get in to find out, and they call it a letter of intent that you have to write, and and move those things forward. But once you find some of those, they tend to stick with you if you're doing a good job.
Well, that's great for anyone to know what to start looking for if they do want to have this nonprofit. And again, looking at the funds, it's totally different when you're a for-profit versus nonprofit. But I would love to also talk about, you were talking about the employees that you have. And as a serial entrepreneur, do you keep your employees completely separate by entity, or does someone work for the nonprofit? They also happen to work for your other business. Obviously, it's two different payroll accounts then if they are working that way. But how do you handle the payroll with multiple businesses?
Well, I have on my for-profit side, there are a total of 4 employees. And on the nonprofit side, there are 11 employees. They don't work. Well, I would say my husband is the only one who technically works for both companies.
Okay.
He is a salary employee by the nonprofit and by the for-profit. And then one of my JDS video employees does a lot of work for the nonprofit, but only is paid by the for-profit. That's a donation back, that when they are working, that is part of the contract that we have as the for-profit, that we give you so much time to do these things and make these things happen. So the work that she does for the nonprofit is client work that she's doing. Same for me. I only work for my for-profit company because I'm the founder of the nonprofit and I'm the board president. So I'm not an employee and paid by the nonprofit. But my for-profit does bill the nonprofit for whatever consultation time that I give it, and the certain things that I do. As we talk about, here I am doing a podcast, right? And I'm on your show and I'm doing that. Well, yes. Does it benefit me as my personal profile? Of course. Does it benefit my for-profit business as we talk about it? Yes, but the majority of everything I have spoken about tends to feed back into my nonprofit. So I'm here in all of those capacities, but I'm only paid to really be here for my for-profit. But because my for-profit is contracted, has a client, I share about them too.
That makes sense. So if someone is listening and again, they're thinking, I'm thinking of starting this other business. I'm running one right now, but I feel like it takes so much time already for this one, but I really have this passion. I want to really do this other one too. Like, what types of tips would you give to someone about maybe how to manage their time so that they can dedicate to both effectively? Or, when do they really start offloading some tasks to someone else and focus maybe on one? Like, how do you manage when you've got more than one business, right?
Well, sometimes it can become a little overwhelming. There are days that I'm buried, no doubt. Sometimes I'm buried in accounts receivable and payable days, that have to happen. Sometimes I'm just buried because they all need a little bit of attention in the marketing world or something like that. I tend to work on all of them together. When it's account receivable or payable day, I've got my 3 little piles kind of working out, and how I kind of go through them and keep them organized and managed. I am a firm believer in the Pomodoro Method, as far as if I need to sit down and focus on one thing and make that happen, everything gets turned off. I don't focus on the other entities, and I'm just straight working out. It's carving out that time sometimes that is more challenging than actually shutting the other things down. It's, the day to day, because here I am in the office while certain things are going on, like from 10 to 3, that is the nonprofit program time with the adults with developmental disabilities. And I need to be a little bit more in tune with what's going on as far as that goes, because that's part of my responsibility. So I can't really just focus on anything other than that at the moment, so you learn in the beginning. I have, I dye my hair, I got probably more grays than I should, but
Understood.
I love it. Anytime I find downtime, next thing I know, I've loaded my plate up with more than I ever really thought that I needed even at that time. And I work my way through it till all of a sudden I've delegated off. You have to delegate. There is no doubt. And I have a great staff. I have an associate producer, and she's been with me, now over a year. So it makes it easier to offload more things so I can take on more and keep growing the business. That really started to happen about 2.5 years ago, when all of a sudden I started working more on the business than working in the business. And
so
once
important.
I was able to do that, the business even started exploding more.
Well, this has been a wonderful discussion. I know we're running short on time, so I want to ask, how can listeners connect with you if they want more information or just to, find out more about you?
Well, I'm pretty easy to find. them all over social media. You can find me, Diane Strand, whether that be on Facebook or Instagram. And then we have the hashtag JDS Family. So if you search that, you'll find JDS Video, JDS Actors Studio. You'll find JDS Creative Academy, which is the nonprofit. And then the TV show that I executive produce is Spirit of Innovation. It's magazine style news and information for Riverside County. And then I have a 3-day festival called DigiFest that I founded. We're in our 7th year. And that's where it's a film festival conference all rolled into one. So those are always great ways to find me. Reach out, say hi. And if there's something that I can serve your audience with, I'm always happy to.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Diane, for being a guest on my show today and sharing on this topic. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here, Candy.
And I do want to thank the listeners. Well, I am glad you were able to tune in, and I hope you found this topic interesting and that it answered some questions about serial entrepreneurship. If you have any additional questions or comments, be sure to reach out to Diane at any of the links that she shared, or send us a message at media@abandp.com. I hope you can join us for our next episode, How to Master the Art of Virtual Presentations. And please remember, you can connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And my website is abandp.com. You can also find the podcast posted on multiple favorite podcast platforms, including Google, TuneIn, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. And would you please share our show information with those you know and leave a review on your favorite platform? I'd really appreciate your support. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.